All right, guys, welcome to our first information session for Microgy Next. We'll wait just a couple of minutes to let people kind of join in if people are running a little bit late. If you're already in, it would be great if you would just type in what university and your state that your university is in. That way you can kind of see where everyone is from. You can go ahead and just type that into the chat box. We're going to not have any audio or video for the participants here this evening, just because there's a lot of people that should be joining in. That way it'll give us some things to do as people are joining in. So it looks like great. So UCR, we've had a team from University of California, Riverside before, and Illinois, fantastic. You guys have returned almost every year. Great. University of Texas, Arlington. All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes.
Okay, this is Cody Kelly from NASA tying in. Just make sure you guys can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. All right, if you just joined us, if you guys would mind just using your chat function and letting us know what university you're from, that would be great. All right, let's go ahead and get started. This shouldn't last all that long, basically just getting you guys some information so that you can take a look at the challenges, have a better understanding of them, have the ability to ask questions regarding the challenges, requirements, and then how to submit a successful proposal. Just once again, welcome to our first Microgy Next information session for the 2020 cycle. My name is Katie Livingood. I'm the Microgy Next coordinator. You will be interfacing with me a lot over the next several months. So please feel free to ask questions at any time. And once again, during this session, you guys can type into the chat box and we will get to those questions as we go through. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So for those of you, if you are new, I see some new universities represented in the chat box: Antelope Valley College, Union County College. So Microgy Next has been around. We are now going into our 6th year, so we've been around for 5 years now. We've had a lot of good success. Those are just some pictures from things that have happened in the span of 5 years that we've been in existence. We've had tools taken down to the NEMO analog. We've been integrated into the tool operations and suited operations with the astronaut training at the NBL. We've been able to work in other training facilities. We had a tool being used on Argos, which is a different kind of analog that the astronauts use for training. And then that last picture, we actually had a tool made or designed by the team that you see in that picture from Lone Star College Sci-Fair here in Houston. That was launched on SpaceX 18 just in July, just a couple weeks ago, and is going to be used during some spacewalks during later this fall on the AMS repairs. So this could be you. This could be your tool that could be used in future missions or later on during upcoming exploration items. So. Oops. Oh, sorry. So before we get into our challenges, we want to make sure that you guys are eligible to participate in MicroGeneX. You do need to be a full-time undergraduate student. So we do not accept graduate students. We just want to make sure that's upfront and clear. You need to be an undergraduate student. You can be attending a junior college, a community college, a university, or college. We accept anything. So those of you who listed those universities in the chat box, you guys, as long as you're an undergraduate student, you are eligible. You do need to, your team itself can be relatively large, but if your proposal is selected and you do travel to Houston, then you need to have only 6 of those team members can travel to Houston. So, but you can make those decisions later on once you've found out if your team has been selected, your proposal has been selected. Your team members must be U.S. citizens. And I did see that question about permanent residents, and I'm sorry, we cannot accept permanent residents. All the team members that would be traveling to Houston must be U.S. citizens. We'd like it to have no more than 2 former MicroGeneX team members on your team. Yes, it's great to have some mentors and advisors around, but we also want to be able to make sure that other students are having the same opportunity to come down to Houston, experience the MBL and the other things that Johnson Space Center has to offer. So we would like to limit that. We highly encourage multidisciplinary teams. So a lot of our challenges this year and in the past have lent themselves very well to mechanical engineering students or aerospace engineering students, but we highly encourage you to go outside of your engineering box. Maybe because some of the, your team may have to fundraise, maybe having a business major on your team would be beneficial to you. Perhaps part of your proposal, if you've looked at the proposal guidelines, there's an outreach component that you're scored upon. So maybe having an education major on your team would be beneficial as well. So think about outside your box, kind of grab everyone that you know, doesn't have to be just in your little pod of engineering friends. And then lastly, you must have a faculty advisor at your institution. It is fantastic if they are heavily involved with your team. They can help you going through some of the technical documents if you haven't gotten to that point in your academic career. They can help you navigate the fundraising aspect of it. Sometimes the schools or the departments have stipends or funds, grants that they can help you receive. So having a great faculty advisor at your institution is really key to making sure that you guys are successful. So are there any questions about the eligibility criteria? All right, I don't see anyone typing, so we'll go ahead and go on. So if you've been with us over the past 5 years, our challenges have changed almost every year, kind of depending upon what the NASA mission is or what we're trying to support. So this year we are Artemis focused. So Artemis is our mission going to the moon, going forward to the moon, making sure that we have a sustainable place at the moon, and then using that as a proving ground to get us to Mars. So our 5 challenges this year focus on certain aspects of the Artemis program. The first picture right there on the left, that's a picture of the Orion capsule. And so that's how we will get to the moon. And so our first challenge focuses on Orion and crew safety. And then our second, the picture right there is a picture of the South Pole of the moon, which is where we plan to land for our Artemis missions. And basically looking at a geological sampling at the South Pole. So we have our POCs, our technical points of contacts, who have actually created the challenges for us and the requirements that go along with them. We have them online. So I will get to those questions once we go through the challenges, but I will let each of the POCs answer or kind of describe their challenge quickly and answer any short questions that might come up. So Cody, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yeah, my name's Cody Kelly, and Lisa Mazuka from the Goddard Space Flight Center is also online, who they manage the Search and Rescue Mission Office. I'm on the Orion Crew Survival Team, and we provide safety and survivability for our astronauts from launch till landing. Basically, we make sure that, from the time they put on the spacesuit to the time they get picked up by military forces, that they're going to be safe and they're going to survive coming back from the moon, Mars, and beyond. This big challenge is really born out of a need for us to be able to go find our astronauts if they get separated from the space capsule by homing in on the personal locator beacons that they wear on their suits that have been developed by Lisa's team and the international community that's basically the second generation of SARSAT beacons that are integrated tightly into our suit. And basically the challenge is to build a autonomous boat or vehicle that can go be dropped from a drone or an aircraft and go find our astronauts and provide them with life support equipment, whether it's a life preserver, survival water, exposure protection, aspects like that. So it's got a lot of different multi-facets, whether it's the mechanical design of the boat or the vehicle that's going to get to the astronauts, or the actual electronics and the homing and the different aspects of that actually find the beacon and take the supplies to our astronauts. And Lisa, you can fill them on anything else from your side.
For us, it's making sure it's all about trying to locate the astronauts in this case, and so we really are looking for autonomous methods to get to them without having other humans doing the initial search. So obviously, Cody's mentioned that there are some key packages that we need to make sure that we get to the victims. In this case, it's our astronauts, so we're not going to call them a victim. But obviously, this is going to be transferable, really, with anybody who might be in danger. So, for us, like I said, unmanned operation, making sure it's also self-guided and that the vehicle that is built can actually home in on a GPS position. So that's going to be the link between the vehicle and then where the astronaut is actually going to be. And then, of course, once we have that position, it would then be a matter of getting that relayed back to our search folks, in this case, trying to get to the astronauts.
And then exactly like what Lisa said, the biggest thing for us is like Lisa's team has done, basically taking that search out of search and rescue and then being able to provide those supplies to the astronauts. And as the challenge unfolds, we'll provide more and more information on what exactly that entails. And, over the course of this program, we'll be able to, give you guys some insight on what we're carrying for Orion Crew Survival, what we carry in our survival kits, and the size, dimensions, the mass, all those different things that go into your design optimization for the marine vessel. That's a big thing. This is a classical, kind of what I would call almost a senior engineering design project, where you have a little bit of mechanical, a little bit of electrical, and you have to package it all into a nice, neat vehicle that can come find our astronauts. And the cool thing about this is it's very applicable, not just to the astronauts, but anyone who's lost at sea. And kind of across all three of our NASA programs, our astronauts come back and land in the ocean. And this kind of resource is good to fill those rescue gaps and keep our astronauts safe.
All right, does anyone have any questions for either Cody or Lisa? Thank you both for being here this evening. All righty. Alrighty, I don't see any questions coming up. Maybe they want to mull them over. That's a lot of information. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next several, where's my button? The next several challenges, and I'll hand you over to Mary.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mary Walker, and I've been involved with MicroGeneX since the first year. And I work here at Johnson Space Center in the engineering department, and my group and I develop EVA tools and equipment. And so challenges 2 through 4 are ones that my office has put forward because starting right now this year, we are building tools to go back to the moon for Artemis, and we are so excited about it. We've done a lot of research about the Apollo era and what kind of tools they had then and things that didn't work so well and why they had to iterate through Apollo 11 through 17. So we're kind of using the Apollo 17 tool suite as our baseline, but making sure we're capturing that lessons learned from the whole Apollo era. So we put forward these 3 as challenges that we will need to tackle at some point, but we want to hear your all's ideas, and so we're looking forward to that. So this first one, challenge 2, is a dust-tolerant pivot mechanism. So basically, there's probably going to be multiple tools that need to have some sort of pivot capability, and we like to use the same design for all of them. And so we're focusing this challenge mostly on that pivot mechanism. But instead of just designing a really cool pivot that you give us, we want to have a tool attached to it so that you can have some cool testing in the pool. So we're definitely going to have some sort of scoop or trenching tool so that astronauts can collect samples with that on the moon. So we're asking that you just put a simple handle and then a scoop on either side of your pivot, and then we're focusing more on the actual pivot design. So keep the other part simple. And the cool thing with the scoop is when it's kind of angled or at a 90, you can use it, as a scoop, but then if it's angled at 180 from the handle, so it's in line, the astronauts can actually kind of turn it over and use it as a trenching tool to get some samples from a little bit further down in the regolith, if that makes sense. Cool, okay, and then I put some cool pictures in here from Apollo training, so. And then challenge 2 or 3 is similar in I guess I didn't mention this, we want it to be kind of dust tolerant, and so lunar dust is very hazardous to humans to breathe in for prolonged exposure, but it can also damage our tools. And so if we're going to put all this time into designing a cool EVA tool that we want to last a long time, we want to make sure that dust can't get in the mechanisms and jam them up. So we want you to focus on some sort of dust tolerant mechanism. So I'll leave that up to you to decide what that's going to be. And I'm excited to see all the designs you all come up with for that, but that's a really important thing. So lunar regolith is essentially basalt that's been, crushed, and then there's no wind on the moon, so there hasn't been a lot of erosion that can make it into more of a finer, smoother regolith. Therefore, that's why it's so hazardous. Anyways, so challenge 3 is a device that is also dust tolerant but can pick up loose samples, and so we call these like float samples. That's kind of the more technical term that planetary geologists would use. So this would be a rock a rock on the lunar surface that can be picked up without having to be chipped off of a larger body or dug out from somewhere. So this will most likely not need a pivot mechanism. It's going to be its own device, the handle and everything. So this is why it's a separate challenge, and we want them to be able to, actuate it from the top. It, does something at the bottom that can collect your sample, but the whole device is dust tolerant. So that's an interesting challenge that we're looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. And then the last one for us is called the initial sample collection device. So this is actually something that they also did on every Apollo mission, and they called it the contingency sampler. So the idea behind this is, even Neil Armstrong did this. The first thing he did when he got down to the bottom of the ladder and jumped onto the lunar stepped onto the lunar surface, within a few minutes he took a tool off of his suit, deployed it, collected a sample, and then stowed it back on his person and carried it around with him the whole time. And this is just in case there's some sort of contingency situation and they have to cut the mission short before like nominal sampling operations can be done. We have at least one rock sample from the moon. So that was important. So this happened even before Buzz came down the ladder onto the surface. So we're definitely gonna do this again. We want it to be very lightweight, easy to get to. So the crew member will be by themselves and they'll have to grab the tool. Lightweight, and then we put a time limit in there because I think it just makes it more interesting, and we want to make sure that you're keeping it really simple and see if we can do it in minutes. Yeah, so be able to collect one sample, and we are kind of assuming that the device will collect and contain the sample. They won't have to also have a bag to put it in or anything like that. So it's all self-contained and then can be put back on the suit in a pocket. Does that make sense? Okay, so those are my three. I kind of rushed through those, but I hope that was a little more background clarification. And I realized some of the challenges are a little vague in the writing, which I kind of did on purpose, but I'm here to answer questions. That's my job. So I guess if anyone has any questions now on those three I talked through. The time limit for challenge 4, I believe it's under 2 minutes, but check the challenge document, it's in the requirements. Anybody else? Okay, well, I'm gonna be here for the rest of the session, so we can answer some more questions at the end or write them as we go, and we'll get back to them. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, now we'll send out to JPL and let them introduce their challenge.
Thank you very much, Katie. My name is Andy Klesch, and I'm an engineer here at JPL. My group works on a variety of different extreme environments, and in this particular case, we're interested in sampling for the lunar surface. And as an analog, we're going to be testing in the microgravity environment that is the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, similar to what you might see on the moon. Now, core sampling on the moon has a long history. This picture was from Apollo 12, where they were actually able to retrieve a number of samples and look at the different layers to determine a variety of different factors about the regolith there. In this challenge, we're interested in actually making a bit to take a core sample. It is a small core sample that can attach to an underwater drill. It is a sample that not only, or a drill system that not only will collect the sample, but actually hold on to it and allow our astronauts to then bring it back to the vehicle for scientists to look at here on Earth. For this particular challenge, we do have to deal with the underwater environments. We'll be looking at either an ice or concrete type sample. At the bottom there is laid out in the requirements on the challenge site. We have left it a little bit open, but you are space constrained because we are always mass and space constrained for our vehicles. And we're asking you to be able to drill in, collect a core, and bring it safely back to Earth or the top of the water so that we can have our scientists take a look at it. If you do have any questions about this, first consult the requirements document that we've been referencing throughout this entire presentation here. Or, of course, you can ask us questions now at the future presentations or email Katie at any point and she'll get a hold of us. Any questions on challenge number 5? Katie, back to you.
All right, look like you had one question, Andy. It says, will it be one sample per drill assembly?
Yes, one sample right now is all we're looking for from the coring drill, and we'll be evaluating it for how well does it fit into the size constraints, how well does it hold on to the sample, can we use it for multiple materials, etc.
All right, thank you. All right, so as Andy mentioned, we want you to look at the requirements of each of the challenges and then go from there and figure out which best fits your skills. But knowing that we've got a little bit of work ahead of us to plan for all of these proposals that we want to get in, we would love that you would send us a letter of intent It's just be very, very simple. Just needs to have your school name, a potential team lead name. If you know who your team members are, maybe those names, your faculty advisor, if you've contacted them and gotten their approval, and then which challenge you have chosen. It'll let us plan a little bit better on our side as those proposals roll in. So that is due by October 1st. So please go ahead and get that done if that's something that you want to do. And actually, what I'd like to ask you real quickly now is to just type in the chat box about how you heard about this, whether you are a former participant or if you saw. I know that we had a tweet and a Facebook post go out last week when we announced on Wednesday. So if you would give us that information in the chat box, that would be great. I'm assuming you all have seen the website. That's how you found this link to come to this info session, and or someone sent you an email about it. Either way works. But on that website, there are the proposal guidelines. There are all of the challenge documents. There's also an FAQ document that is up there. It goes over just some general information, questions that have been asked throughout the years. Goes over some technical questions throughout that we've had throughout the years. And then actually, as we hold these information sessions, we will be updating those FAQs with questions that we received during the session. So there's been a couple questions already asked this evening. We'll go through and update that FAQ and put it back online later on this week or early next week. So just so you know, we will be updating that throughout the proposal period. So please definitely refer to the proposal guidelines. There are some strict page requirements on that technical area. Pretty much it's the technical section of your proposal can only be 12 pages. If you go past 12, they're not going to read the rest of them. So if you have important information in those last couple pages, you might want to, you really need to make sure that you're under that 12 page requirement. Make sure to provide as much information as you can. We know we don't expect you to have a prototype built by the time you submit a proposal, but we would like as much information. Hand drawings, even hand drawings are fine. But it is preferred that you submit a proposal with a CAD file. If you've gone onto the website at all and hit the apply button and try to look through what our submission process looks like, there is one screen for your proposal document. It needs to be under 25 meg. And then there's a second screen for your CAD file. And it also needs to be under 25 meg. And we ask that you provide it in an STP or IGES file. It's just easier for us to read for our software that we have. If you have questions concerning the proposal submission, feel free to email at any point, or we do have 2 more of these sessions in the following weeks, and you can always join us for another one and ask your questions then. So big deadline, October 31st, that is the deadline for your proposal. And then we announce in early December. So we take about 4 weeks to go through and review proposals with all of our technical POCs. And if you notice, and I didn't really go through, I didn't really introduce it well, I guess, at the beginning of this, but we're working at, this is a cross-center collaboration. We sit here, me and Mary sit here at Johnson Space Center. Cody actually sits here at Johnson Space Center with us, but then Lisa sits over at Goddard Space Flight Center for the Orion Search and Rescue, and then as Andy mentioned, he's out at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. We disseminate all the proposals and do a thorough review, and then we will announce in December. Just very quick, a little summary for those of you who are new, what happens after selection. So once you are selected, then you go into the phase 2. This is for your team to build. We assign you a team mentor. This is a NASA engineer or scientist that can help you with a lot of, kind of navigating the NASA requirements and technical documents that we ask from your team. You will be in a contact with us, with all of us, basically, the whole MicroGeneX staff, and the technical POCs during that time. So if you have questions, you're always more than welcome to ask them. And then towards the end of next spring, early summer, you will travel to Houston. You'll go through a test readiness review, making sure that your device is safe to get into the water. And then you will have a test day. While you're also here at Johnson, we will treat you to some other spectacular experiences, usually mission control, our space vehicle mock-up facility, things like that. And just a good way to basically get to know other people, like-minded people. They also built devices and wanted to test them down here. So it's a great way to build your network and to kind of get into that NASA pipeline. We talk about internships, things of that nature. And yes, the test takes are approximate. They are listed on the website. Oops. Oh my goodness, this is not working well. All right, so as we mentioned, we are a little bit different. If you have done any other NASA activities, we don't fund you. So you guys will need to come up with all of your funding. Every state has a space grant consortium, so it's strongly suggested that you contact them. A lot of our teams in the past have received travel funds or materials funds or manufacturing funds from their space grant. I know Nebraska's got it. Our Nebraska team's always gotten some. Our New York teams have. Our Idaho team has. California specifically reaches out to us to ask who we have selected from California to see if they can give them some money. So if that UCR team, make sure you reach out to them to see if they can help you out. Also look at industry grants. So, aerospace industry is booming right now. See if they have anything that you could tap into. And as I mentioned earlier, if your school or the department that you sit in or your faculty advisor sits in may have the ability for any type of funding or grants, look into that. And then just be creative. As I mentioned, fundraising kind of ends up being a bigger part to our teams than they initially realize. And so we've had, in the past 2 years, we've had teams that actually had a business major or a marketing major on their team, which once again may not be, your initial thought about an engineering design challenge participant, but because they needed to fundraise, they did. They asked a friend, and there was one team who got funding from like the university apartments because they had this kind of slush fund that they use for events, and no one was using it, and so they were able to get a $500 check from them. So really go outside of your comfort zone of what you would think that you would need, who you might ask for funding because it's there. Probably more often than you think it's there. They probably want to get rid of it too. And lastly, once again, there's our website. All of those documents are up there. We hope to have within the next, month, I would say, give us a month. We will hopefully have some videos about our challenges up on the website. And then, as I mentioned, we have 2 more of these information sessions. The next one is August 29th, which I'm not quite sure what day of the week it is. And then the last one is September 10th, which I know is a Tuesday. They will always be at 6 p.m. Central Time. And then you can find those links to join on the website. So at this moment, I will open up to any questions whatsoever. If you have logistic questions about the challenges, anything to that nature, we'll open it up, give you all a couple minutes, and then once that, we'll close it out. So, any questions? Yes.
Hello. So Nick asked a good question. I just wanted to say it to everyone in case you're not reading the chat, but he asked about the size requirement for Challenge 4. So assume all of those requirements are for the tool alone pre-sampling, if that makes sense. So if you're going to collect a 2-inch rock sample, you're obviously going to break that size requirement. So.
Okay. The minimum team size. So kind of is up to you. Last year we had a team of 2. Nebraska sent a team of 2, and they were great. We have Boise State usually sends a team, and they send their 6 people, but they also have a ground team of probably 25 people. So really kind of up to you. Really, then you get into lots of team dynamics and things to that nature. So obviously, I would say 2 would probably be the minimum. If you're not doing this for a senior design class specifically, this is a lot of work. All right, any other questions? All right, and I'll say it one last time for the people who joined a little bit late. If you haven't told us what university you are attending, we'd love to see it in the chat box before we go. As I mentioned, let's see, the age restriction, most most of our students are under 18 but are full-time. So this goes back to we cannot allow dual credit students. So you must be only a full-time student. You cannot be a high school student as well. And you can be under 18. You have to be 16 by the time you travel to Houston, though. If you are under 18, you do have to have your parents sign a, not a waiver. What would you call that? Maybe a waiver, something to that nature. Kind of. All right, any other questions? Alrighty, if not, then we will give you lots of time back. So didn't think it would take an hour. Like I said, if you decide that you're looking through the requirements and the challenges in the next several days, feel free to join us again. It will be the same. We will be giving the same information, but there will be different people, and they may be asking different questions that you may have too. So please join us again. We'd love to see you, and we will talk to you later.